All right, today I want to share about the experience I had. I want to say, um, how long ago was this? We are in 2026, about to be. Um, I want to say 2014 ish. Just trying to remember. When I left Massachusetts, I think it was in 2014 in the summertime, towards the end of summer. And I had a decision to make, and I really wasn't quite sure on that decision, to be honest. I was a little bit all over the place. Some things were going on back home that, it's time for me to leave. I've been wanting to get out of Massachusetts at this time for a while anyway. Um, it just wasn't good for me. Sometimes, when you're in a place that's super familiar, um, you tend to be complacent and get comfortable, and so that's where I was at. And quick backstory, I'll do it real brief. I got saved in 2003. Didn't come from a family of faith. We weren't the type of family that went to church. Come from a single parent household. My dad held it down. I got a brother and sister. Um, uh, So I came to know God at the age of about 19. Yeah, I stayed back. It was my senior year in high school. I had stayed back in fourth grade, so that pushed me along to be 19 by the time I was graduating. Um, a lot of stuff was going on. I was into drugs and, the street life type of stuff. And, I wasn't a gangster or anything like that, but I was doing stuff that, pertained to that lifestyle. Just lost. A lot of us go through those things. Whether you grow up in an urban environment or not, you can be lost in many different areas. So, I was just lost to the streets. I was doing things that, could have got me locked up. Um, I couldn't say for how long. I wasn't out there committing murders and stuff like that. But, there was just some things that, could potentially lead me behind bars. And then other things had transpired, and one thing led to another, and I cried out to God one day in my bedroom, and He heard me. Fast forward to 2014-ish, I started falling back into that lifestyle. It was very rocky when I got saved. Had that fire and that zeal for God, and then I kind of started tending to go back to my old ways. That constant battle of your new self and your old self. And my old self was getting the best of me. Went back to started drinking. You know, Before that, I used to smoke weed a lot, and at this moment, I didn't want to go back to smoking weed, so I started picking up the bottle. And you know how it turns to a weekend thing, starts turning to an extra day during the week, and then 2 extra days during the week, and one thing leads to another. And I was just constantly just crying out to God to save me, to get me from that environment, because I knew I didn't have the strength within me to overcome it at that moment where I was currently at. The familiarity and the comfortability, and you just knowing, when you're in a place that if you want to get certain things or you want to run into certain people to indulge into certain pleasures and things like that, you have easy access to those things in a place that you're familiar with. So I was begging God to save me from that environment and let me get a new path. And fast forward, some things transpired at my house, and we had a deadline to leave, me and my stepbrother. So I just started, scrambling a little bit. We had a few months to try to get our stuff together and figure out what we were going to do. And I had a CDL, so I just was looking at trucking jobs. And I actually was applying to U.S. Express at the time. I was basically about to enter into their orientation phase in Pennsylvania. And then For whatever reason, this other company called Western Express popped up on my radar. I don't even know how. And they had drive-in and flatbed division. So at this time, I had recently did the Stevens transport for 3 weeks, came back home. I went to school for computer science, did a 2-year degree at a community college, and tried that out. It just wasn't, what I was looking for, and so at that time I already had, my CDL. So I get, in touch with Western Express. They're down in Nashville, Tennessee, and I ended up going down. It was one of the, I think it's Labor Day, I think it's Labor Day weekend, one closest to September. And I go down. Immediately I knew it wasn't for me. I knew this company and I were not a good fit and not a good match. But the thing with these trucking companies, if you're not familiar, they put you in a hotel, you know what I mean? So I kind of used them for that week and to try to figure things out. I knew from day one. I think I went 2 days out of the orientation. It was supposed to be a 7-day or 5 days, and then I think an extra day the following week because it was the holiday. So after the second day, I stopped going to orientation, and I was trying to figure things out. And so where I was at, I was in a part of Nashville. I think it was West Trinity Lane, and I'll have to think of the other crossroad, but there was a hotel there. I-65 was right there. At that time, it wasn't the most desirable neighborhood. The hotel they had us in, fortunately had, women that, indulged in that lifestyle of using their bodies. So this is the environment I'm in. So there was a laundromat right there. And I'm just showing you the process of how God had worked in my life. I really feel like it was God, putting me in that position. I'm sorry, I'm looking over there at my kids. I'm at a park. So I'm making this video and, watching them at the same time. So there was a laundromat right there, and that comes into play later. So I go and I'm like, man, I'm in the South. I told God, if you rescue me from where I'm at, then I'll rededicate my life to you. And so I go to the laundromat. There's a guy standing outside smoking a cigarette. I go up to him and say, hey, you know any churches, blah, 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 blah. He gets to talking, and he told me he goes to this church, but, the pastor is kind of like, they don't really have a pastor at the time. So I already knew right off the bat I wasn't going to go to that church. So I went back to the hotel. So let me give you the description. So there's the laundromats here. There's a restaurant called Dunk's. It's like a local club, bar type thing. And then across the street was a Waffle House and something else. I go back, I start looking up things. I find this church. It's 2 miles or so up the road. I called, tell them, if they could pick me up. I don't hear back. Regardless, I said I was going. So there was a couple guys that I had met, one from New Jersey, from Philly, and we were all like up north people. I forget the other one. Baltimore. So there's 3 guys that we, we're all at Western Express. They continued to go. I stayed, but we were all on the same floor. We went to downtown Nashville on Broadway, and so I told them, I was like, hey, because it was the holiday. So I said, hey, I'm going to church on Sunday. Y'all are more than welcome to come with me. They were all excited. No one ended up going. I knew it was a solo mission at that point. I ended up walking to the church, and it was Freedom Sunday. And at that point I had only been to like smaller churches. This was, I wouldn't say it's a mega church, but it was a big church. And I don't think there was a message. It was just worship, and it was beautiful. And I felt like the Spirit of God said, this is where I want you. So after everything was said and done, I went up to the stage. Don't know nobody there, and I talked to the bishops, and I said, I feel like God's telling me this is where He wants me. I'm not too sure about it, but this is what I feel. So I take off walking down the street, and I told God, I said, God, if this is really where you want me, then somebody from this church is going to pick me up. And so I'm walking down the road. I'm worshiping from, the songs that we were just playing. And every car at the moment that passed me by, I'm like, is that the car? like anticipating, an answer from God. And I kind of stopped thinking about it, and I got to the point to where I was almost at the Waffle House, Dunks, and the laundromat. So this road is two lanes in each direction, so it's a busy section of the city. So as I'm getting down, and it's one of those areas, so you got to be mindful too. I'm not from there. This is my first, couple days in a foreign place that I have know nothing really about. So I can see the Waffle House, and as because the hotel, you had to cross the street by the laundromat and then walk through a parking lot, and there's the hotel. So as I'm about to try to merge to the other side, a car pulls close to me. So like I said, you're in those type of neighborhoods, you got to be mindful of where you're at. So I'm paying no attention because it kind of passes me, and then it pulls into the to the Waffle House. So as it pulls into the Waffle House, I cross the street diagonal towards the laundromat, and as I'm going toward the laundromat, the car is doing a U-turn across the two streets to the laundromat where I'm at. So hold on. And then sorry, these little kids just disrupted my area, so now I gotta find a new spot. So as they cross, they pull the window down. Remember, I said, God, if this is where you want me, then someone's gonna pick me up. The person that drives and stops happens to be the bishop and his wife. You know what I mean? Only God can write these type of stories. So they come in, they asked me if I wanted a ride, and I was kind of like laughing to myself. But I was like, nah. I said, my hotel's right there. Fast forward that. They invite me to their cookout the next day. We talk, boom, boom, boom. I head up to Massachusetts, spend a week, and I drive down with all my stuff, not knowing where I'm going. So I drive the drive, having them thoughts as I'm driving down each state. Is this what God really wants? Am I making the right decision? This, and that. And then, but as soon as I crossed the Massachusetts border, I felt like some sort of freedom. I felt like some sort of release, of bondage off of me. Not to say I was free, but it just felt like it. And then, so I'm driving down. I get to Tennessee at 7 o'clock at night. Been driving all day. I go to the homeless shelter. It's booked. It's packed. So hold on. Let me try to go because too many people keep, for whatever reason, walking towards me. I was just in a spot where it was nice and chill, but so I get to the shelter. It's packed. So the only other place I know is the hotel area and the church. So I head to the church, and I go into the parking lot, and I call the bishop. I tell him I'm down, blase, blase, blah. Spend the night in the church. First night, I kid you not. I'm telling you, this is when I know God's hand was just orchestrating this whole thing. I'm sitting in the parking lot. I can't sleep. My car don't have AC. So, like I said, it was summertime still. I'm in the South. Now it's I'm trying to get comfortable. I can only move my seat so much back because I got to hold all my stuff is in the trunk and in the back seat. So then I think it was probably between 1 and 2 in the morning. I'm just, I have the windows cracked a little bit. Mosquitoes are coming in. Just uncomfortable. And this van rolls up. I can't really see the headlights are on. I'm like, oh, great. Because the church isn't in the greatest neighborhood either. It's a little bit different. It's 2 miles up the street from where the hotel was. It's kind of more off the beaten path, but it's not. It's hard to explain. But parking lot's wide open. And this car pulls up, lights shining through my window. Someone gets out, happens to be a cop. But it was he wasn't undercover, but he was in a minivan. It was weird. So I guess they patrol that area. So he comes up to me and he knocks on the window, roll it down. I'm not getting any sleep anyway. And then he asked, what I'm doing there. I explained to him I just, drove down from Massachusetts, and he kept asking me if I had warrants. He's like, "Do you have any warrants?" Like, no, I don't got no warrants. I said, I'm trying to, start something different. I'm just seeing what's out here. I came down for a job, but the job didn't pan out. So, I found this church, and I'm just seeing where it goes from there. And he's just, all right. And then he asked where I was from again in Massachusetts. And mind you, if you don't know too much about Massachusetts, all you're really going to know is Boston. You might know some other things, but I'm from Lowell. It's in Massachusetts it's known, but or maybe even in New England, but if you're not from that area, you're not going to know, only it's like certain places, people only know certain cities. In Massachusetts not being so big of a state, Boston's really like the only place that, people usually from out of town, they say, "Oh, I'm from Boston." No, I'm not from Boston. I'm from Lowell. So I kept telling him I'm from Lowell because he kept asking me what part of Massachusetts. So I'm in my head, I'm asking, why is he asking me about Lowell and stuff? Like, you're in Nashville. Like, how you know about Lowell? The cop was from Lowell. I kid you not, because he kept asking me. He said he's from Lowell. He was from the Belvedere section. I'm from Centerville. And so we got to talking. I just started laughing. Like, I just drove thousands of miles to get down here, sleeping in my car, not knowing what I'm about to do. And the first person I meet on my journey is somebody that is from my city. And when he left and he said, I'm going to tell the other officers that are patrolling that you might be here, so like not to bother you, and they'll look out for me. So I appreciated that. I kid you not, God said that in that moment when he left, I was praying, I was just laughing, and God said that I'm with you. And this was like a symbolism of how I'm with you. He said, my authority is with you, my power is with you, but I need you to serve. And police officers to protect and serve, and they have an authority, they have some sort of power. And God was just reminding me that no matter how far I was, that I felt that I was off from the path, getting back to drinking and smoking and doing all these things, that he was still with me. That my heart was yearning for that relationship again, the relationship that I severed, the relationship that I've walked away from. And he was just reminding me that, he was still there. And that's how God does it sometimes. He'll use people, he'll use things, he'll use movies, songs, whatever it may be to get your attention. And he did that. Okay, I'm right here. So, yeah, that's basically, I've always shared bits and pieces of that testimony, here and there. But, this is the time I actually can break it down and go into more detail. So then friend of mine, the next day prayed for me, said that, in a week I'll have a job, and then, I'll have a place to stay. So for 2 days I slept in my car. So I went to downtown to the library to use their internet, and from there I was trying to look for jobs. And then the second day, there was a lot of homeless people at the library, and they were being disruptive. So I was like, man, I got to find another place. So I found a Starbucks in Vanderbilt, and I just so happened to look up, and that a truck company called Fresh Point came by. And sorry, my son's running, so I'm just seeing where he's running to. And I applied to Fresh Point, and they called me back the same day. I was hired within that week. And then the bishop from the church, they had a building that they used the front, but the back had damage to it, water damage and stuff. And they said they had, if I wanted to, I could stay in there until I got on my feet. So I ended up sleeping in an old abandoned classroom. I want to say it was between 6 to 8 months. And then I became a homeowner after that. But I do have a little video. It was my first video I've ever edited. So I thought I was going to be this big time trucker and, go over the road. So I had bought all this stuff. I had bought a laptop, and I had downloaded this software, and I was doing all this stuff. And literally I had my first video. And it'll show, the building that I'm at. And, you'll see, the difference. That was, 8 years ago. No, longer than that. It's 2026, almost 12 years ago. So, yeah, that was my journey from being homeless to a homeowner. Because after the 6 to 8 months, God allowed me to buy a house. I'll share the house on the screen, but um, I wasn't a true homeless person, but I didn't, that wasn't a residence, that wasn't a home. I did a bird bath for that whole time. I had a wash rag and some soap. I had one plug-in hot pot, or like that you can heat up, so I would boil pasta. So basically, I just ate a lot of pasta and sandwiches. I bought a few little things here and there, and but that was my journey from Nashville and from Massachusetts to Nashville, excuse me. At that time. So, if you're going through, I know how it feels to go through where you feel like you're at rock bottom. And, but if you just hold on, to that fight within you, if you hold on to that faith, if you're a person of faith, no, it doesn't matter how far you may feel you've gone or you've slipped away, there's always time for redemption. There's always time to get it back and to become better. That was one of the hardest moments of my life, but I'm grateful that I went through it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I appreciate, what I've learned in that moment and in that time of, it was really just me. I made some good friends out there, and I'm appreciative to everybody that lended a hand, to the church, to the bishops, to their family. But I knew it was seasonal. I knew I wasn't going to be there long. I knew it was like intermission for what God had next. So again, I'm gonna just let the old me, the person from 12 years ago, talk to y'all.
From my hometown, memories of phrase. From my hometown, ooh, the people I've made, all the wonders of my world.
What's going on, world? Heading to go do some laundry. Just moved out here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'll show you where I'm staying at. That's the building is my car. The building I'm staying at. God is just blessing me, man. Show you right here if I can. We got Jack's barbecue. Smell that barbecue. Just moved out here on a leap of faith, man. Just trusting God, and He's been doing it. He's provided provision where there's vision. And this is just to encourage those that are going through that same situation where they feel like they need to just see a new level within their faith and an increase in faith. And sometimes you just got to get out of your comfort zone and just really trust in the Lord wholeheartedly and not be afraid of not knowing, what you're getting yourself into. But just doing it. Just step out on faith, activate that faith that's inside of you, All it takes is the faith of a mustard seed. So if you just have that much inside of you and you will just allow the Lord to do the rest, I'm telling you, man, great things are ahead. Not saying it's going to be easy, but the things that you have to work hard for and the things that you really have to, persevere through are the things that are going to last, a lifetime. Just sitting here, walking to do my laundry. Just wanted to encourage y'all, give you a quick update, and I'll post these videos here and there. But just stay encouraged, y'all. Whatever it is that you're going through in life, it's gonna get better. It will get better. Just keep that mindset, Put your faith to action. And y'all be blessed out there. This is Josh signing off. Love y'all, world. Mill City representative. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.